All right, congratulations. You made it to video 3 in my 5-video series all about home buying and what it's going to take to get from A to Z and successfully purchase your next home. So I'm really excited to share with you guys today the topic of showings. So once you've finished video 1 and video 2, which went over the introduction of just who I am and who my team is and what we're all about and how we set ourselves apart from others, or the value that we provide you guys. After that first video, video number 2, hopefully you just finished watching that one. That one's all about 2 things: the signed buyer agency agreement, and then also, if needed, getting a pre-approval letter. If you're gonna be paying cash for the home, you don't need that, but you will need to have proof of funds. So anyways, those videos were all about that. This one today is all about the home search. So once you've been pre-approved or you have that proof of funds and you've got that buyer agency signed with me and we're able to legally go out now and look at homes together, this video is going to talk a little bit more in depth on what to expect during this phase. You know, for some clients, this is a very short phase where maybe they're very specific on what they want and it doesn't take us too much time to find that perfect option for them, where for other people, it might take a little bit of while. So the key with this part of the process is having a really good line of communication between myself and you guys, and as much feedback as you have, always providing that to me so I can more fine-tune the search criteria and just really make sure that when we do start going out and looking at homes in person, we're only going out and looking at homes that really do match the majority of the needs of what you're looking for. So I'm going to talk to you guys first about just a few tips that I have, which I think are really valuable just to keep in mind, that are talking specifically about this point. So when we first start talking through what it is you really want in your house, I like to use this phrase: must-haves, want-to-haves, and nice-to-haves. And what this is it's just a little exercise I do with my clients to help figure out exactly the level of importance different features and characteristics of a home have for you, the buyer. So when I first start off and talk about the must-haves, these are things that are non-negotiables. So these are things about the house that you need to have no matter what. This could be a lot of different things. I'll just give you a couple examples just to kind of get your heads in the right frame of mind with this. So my first example would be, you need to have at least one of the bedrooms on the main level. So maybe it's for yourselves, maybe you're getting a little bit older, or maybe you have a bad knee and you just can't go up and down stairs, or maybe it's even you're maybe younger and you have a mother or father that's going to be staying with you on a frequent basis and they can't go up or down stairs and they need to have a bedroom on the main level for their convenience. So that would be one example, having a bedroom on the main level. Another example of a must-have could be a school district. So maybe you're currently already in Colorado and in Denver, or maybe you're just out of state, but you've identified some very specific school districts that are very important to you and where you want to have your kids attend. In a case like this is also a must-have, where by providing me with that info, that really helps me dial in exactly what we're looking for, and I'm not wasting your time by sending properties that just don't work, and vice versa. I'm spending my time with the best possible use by getting these accurate listings prepared for you. So the next is a want to have, and this would be things that are a little bit less yes or no, a must have, a yes or no. With these, it's more of a want to have. An example with this would be maybe an extra large backyard, and you've got young kids, or maybe just a couple dogs, and you just really want to have a big backyard for them to play in. This is very important to you, but maybe it's not quite as important as certain other features of the home, where it's not a deal breaker, but it is a really want to have. So these are also just things to write down for me and provide me with, just to also, when I start finding potential matches, when I notice certain things that are these want-to-haves, I can highlight those to you, and that might put them higher up in our list when we start to put together a list of homes we want to go out and see together. And then last but not least are nice-to-haves. So this would be the third tier of these different preferences. And a nice-to-have would be, and again, this is just some examples, some theoreticals, but one example of a nice-to-have would be a 3-car garage. So a garage is a must-have. You need to have at least 2-car garage, but man, it sure would be nice to have a 3rd car garage. So these are things that, they might come down to price, where if having some of these nice to have features puts the price too high and not where you're comfortable spending, then this might be something that just gets taken off. Or some of these cases might be things that end up working out and they're just extra great things that are nice to have. So that would be one good example, a 3-car garage instead of a 2-car garage. Another example would be maybe a smart home. If it has some features within the home, like wired speakers in certain rooms for a surround sound, multi-room stereo system. Another example would be, you really want to have granite countertops in the kitchen, or you really want to have a finished basement. So these are things that, again, are nice to have, but aren't deal breakers. One other side note, a lot of these nice to haves are typically things that can be, in certain cases, done later on. So when I talked about like the granite countertops, or the finished basement, some of those things are still feasible and possible down the road, but maybe just currently you're buying the home as is and without those nice to have elements of the home. So now going back to creating this search criteria and really helping me out with providing as much info and preferences as possible, what I always like to start people out with, and this is super duper important, is starting out from more of like a 10,000 foot view and really focusing on areas, not specific homes. So once we've talked at least about some of those features of the homes that are the must-haves and all that good stuff, it's also though important to understand really where you want the home to be located. And that's gonna really be the biggest homework assignment, is providing me with at least one, if you know for sure where that area is. If you don't know for sure, at least narrowing it down to only a few areas. And the reasoning for that is, again, we don't wanna go out and look at homes that are meeting all these other great features. They look great on Zillow, great pictures. Oh, it's got that main floor bedroom. It's got a nice big backyard. It's got all these must-haves, want-to-haves, nice-to-haves, but it's just not in the right area. So at that point, it's like, well, why do we go spend our time looking at a home that, yeah, it's a great home, but it's not in the right area? So area is always more important and always trumps the home itself initially. So we want to make sure we really have identified the areas first, and then we go from there. Now, we also always want to be sure that we're on the same page and communicating about what the realistic budget is for the home. And what I mean by this is, regardless of how much money any client of mine or anybody I'm helping with has, it's not about how much money they have, it's how much they want to spend. What makes sense for them with this specific purchase, and really understanding that range of where that budget needs to be. And the reasoning I bring this up is it's important to understand as a realtor, when setting up search criteria and sending over possible matches, is let's just say that you're really set on a home between $350,000 and $400,000, and your budget just really will not allow anything above $400,000. Your pre-approval letter is acknowledging that, as well as just where you feel comfortable with where your budget is. So, if I find homes that are $425,000, yes, some of that will still be considered from an understanding of some of that might be able to get negotiated down, where we do finally end up at a closing price of close to, or hopefully at or below what that number is. But we need to make sure we're being realistic and communicating with each other, where we're not setting that price point too high, where we're finding homes that do fit a lot of these other matches and boxes that we're trying to fit, but the price just is unrealistic. And because of that, we're going to not be able to, be successful with moving further down this pipeline or this journey of getting an offer submitted and hopefully getting it under contract. Now, these last two tips I want to share with you before going back to just the search process that we're going to go through. A couple of last tips that I want to share with you. The first one is really identifying, to me, what your style preferences are and the property type. So there's really 3 types of properties. There's single family homes, there's duplexes or townhomes, which is basically 2 homes that have a shared party wall. And then you have what's called attached. And attached would be any sort of apartment or condominium. So those are mainly, the 3 types of homes. We're not talking about where they're located as far as what they're zoned for, if they're more of a farm or more of that kind of stuff. I'm just referring to the 3 types of properties. Again, single family, townhome, and apartment or condo. And then we also, though, want to have you start helping me by providing me with feedback on, when you start to see some of these suggested homes that I'm sending over, what your preferences are. Adam, I like this home, but I really want something that's a little bit more modern. Or Adam, I really don't like how when you walk into this house, it's a split level where as soon as you walk in, you either got to walk upstairs or you got to walk downstairs. Or, you know, Adam, I just really don't like how it's on a busy street in the backyard. There's a lot of noise. I'm a little worried about our kids or our pets getting out and maybe getting in an issue with a car driving by. So those are just examples of some of this feedback that you can provide me with to help, again, get closer and closer to a very specific search criteria. And then last but not least, when I'm talking through the search criteria and these must-haves, want-to-haves, nice-to-haves, also thinking through what your long-term goals are with the property. Is this a home that you're gonna be wanting to flip in a couple years? Or maybe you've got young kids and you really want this to be the home that you're gonna be in for the next 25 years. Really understanding that can make a drastic difference on the types of homes we're looking for. Just one quick example on this. Let's just say that you're looking for a home that you want to make sure that you're gonna find the right home and have it be your family's home for the next 20 or 30 years. In a scenario like that, it might be okay to have an unfinished basement, knowing that in a couple years, you'll be able to save up some extra money and maybe do some of the work yourself or finish that later on. However, if it's a home that you're gonna be flipping in 2 years and you really just wanna have something for a short period, a short chapter of your life, then some of those might not really be something you even want to consider. So, you know, really explaining to me your personal situation and what's important to you, that again is going to not only help us find and identify the right home today to put an offer on, but also just peace of mind that the home you do end up purchasing, hopefully, is going to be a home that you're going to be really happy with and content and satisfied, and it's going to be the right fit for you for that long term, or at least for whatever goal you have in purchasing the home. All right, so now I'm going to share with you a quick little video showing my screen and just talking through a couple quick points on what to expect from your end when you start to receive some of the search results of some of these different listings that I start sending over to you. So I'm going to have you watch that really quickly, and then we'll go back to a couple last points before we close out this video. All right, you guys. So as I said, I just wanted to do a really quick screen share just to show you on the search criteria and just how this looks from your end. So when I start to set up this criteria, you're going to see an email similar to this. This is an example of one that was sent earlier today that is sending one of my friends and clients any updated or new criteria of a home that just matched what we're looking for as far as that search criteria. So we can have this set up to come out as immediately as any new listings come available, or just every day, either in the morning or evening with fresh updates, or even just something more casual like once a week, even once a month. It all depends on the urgency and the timeline that you've established as far as how quickly you are trying to find this home. So when you get emails like this, what's going to happen is you're going to be able to look at them by clicking the email. And when you see this, this is an example of the portal that I'll set up for you. So with that search criteria we've established, you'll see any homes that match that. And all I really want to show you is just how this kind of looks from your perspective, and also to share with you how there's a few really nice tools that exist here, including being able to heart any of the homes that look interesting to you, as well as you can actually click inside any of these. Let's just click this one, for example, and see all of the pictures similar to what you would find on Zillow. And you could also even go up here at the very top to messages. You can send me any specific messages, maybe feedback on a home, anything like that. You can also go back and see any of the saved homes that you've already liked and kind of inventoried as homes that you want to learn more about, all this kind of stuff. So I'll go through this in more depth once we get it set up for your specific search, but just so you understand kind of what it looks like from your end. So again, didn't want to do a ton of detailed info on this little quick video, but that's all I really wanted to get across to you. All right, so after you just watched that quick little clip on what it looks like from your end when these search results start showing up in your email inbox, now we've been able to, identify a few homes that are going to be worth going out and looking at in person. A couple quick tips on this part of the process, just so you guys are clear, and I'll make sure to remind you about a couple of these tips when we're together in person, but just to include them here as well. The first one is, it is super important in today's age of technology that as soon as we get to the house, you're very aware that they could be listening to us. And as weird as that sounds, nowadays almost everybody has a Ring doorbell camera or something similar. A lot of homes, especially if it's still occupied, if the homeowner is still living there, they might have an Amazon Alexa or maybe other types of recording devices. And it's just super important when it comes to when it gets close to the negotiation phase where we might be actually putting an offer together on the home, that we're not laying out any cards on the table for them to use against us. An example of this would be if you are not aware of them potentially listening to you, and we get done walking through the house and you really like it, we end up locking the door, and then we're just standing in front of the house right by the front door for another 5 or 10 minutes and talking about, what you liked or didn't like about the house. And maybe you're just super excited, you love the house, and you're talking about how, man, I just definitely want to put an offer on this house immediately, like we want this house so bad. Think about this from the other perspective. If the seller is able to somehow identify that you are incredibly emotionally attached to the home and excited and very, very interested, that could be a reason why if we try and put an offer together where we're asking for a lower price point, they might push back and say, you know what, no, we think these people are gonna buy it regardless because of what we heard. So just be aware that there are recording devices, there are things like doorbells and different things that we don't even think about sometimes, but could be listening in on our conversation. So that's tip number 1. My second tip I want to share is just really going back to this thing I've said a few times already now in this video, but feedback. So it gets really confusing when we go out and see a ton of homes all in one visit. So I always try and limit the number of homes we see in one showing, in one setting, one time frame, to maybe 5 at the most, maybe 6, but anything above that, you really start to become fatigued, and also you start to kind of forget which house was which and which one had this, which one had that. So I think it's really, really important, if whatever way works best for you, but whether you're writing down notes or just being very verbal and communicating this with me when we're going through each of the homes, or at least right after we're away from any recording devices, going back to that comment, but just being able to really communicate your feedback to me and understand that the more info you give me, the better, because again, that's the biggest thing as a realtor. We love to have as much communication as possible to make sure that we're sending you guys what we think are going to be the right options for you. Now, if you're an out-of-state buyer, it's also important to understand that there are other ways to see homes other than you coming out and visiting them yourself. I pride myself at being very, very good with video and capturing video tours and just being able to offer virtual tours to my clients if you are somebody that is unavailable to come out and see them in person. So same exact idea behind all of this. We identify a few homes, and then instead of you being with me in the car, I'll go out there and I'll take a video of each home really in depth. I'll be talking to the video while I'm going through each of the rooms and explaining a few things that I might notice that you're not able to see if it's over video. Now, taking this on the other side of things, if I'm working with a seller and I'm preparing their home to sell, I talk a lot about the 3-strike policy. And what this means is you always want to have a house presented in a way where when somebody walks through it, there's no big red flags. So as a buyer, if I'm walking through the house for you as a virtual showing, you're out of state and you're not able to join me on the showing, I'm always very, very aware of this 3-strike policy. So let's say I walk in the front door and man, as soon as I walk in, it's just got this overwhelming bad smell. That's strike 1. And also I'm saying that in the video so you're able to also hear me and understand that exists, because you wouldn't even know about that otherwise, since you're virtually enjoying the showing without being able to have other senses like smell. Another example would be sound. I walk into the house, it smells bad, walk back into the living room and it backs up to a road that we didn't think was gonna be that big of a deal, but man, it is noisy. It's 5 p.m., kind of around rush hour, and it is just very noisy, where if you're outside on your back deck, it wouldn't be very enjoyable. That's another example, strike 2. Something that is a sense, in this case hearing, that you wouldn't be able to really be identifying or being able to be aware of if you're just watching a video or just looking at the pictures. So that's another example of this 3-strike policy. And then a 3rd strike could be, one last thing. Maybe it's, photographers are amazing. They do a great job at making every room look as good as they possibly can. But, maybe there's a goofy, measurements in some of the rooms where it just feels really tight and you just can't even imagine this being a bedroom and actually fitting anything bigger than a twin-size bed in the room. Maybe it looks big in the pictures, but until you're out there, you just can't really understand that. Or maybe it's just more subtle things, like maybe I go down to the mechanical room in the basement and there is just junk all over the place. There's, maybe like a bunch of broken air filters next to the mechanical systems, just stuff that's maybe giving me an impression that they're not very well maintained. They're not doing a good job with preventative maintenance on the mechanical systems of the house. So that'd be another thing that probably isn't going to come up on a typical showing if you're doing it virtually, where I'm going to go the extra mile and really explain that kind of stuff to you through video. Now, as we go through each of these houses and start to share feedback with each other on what you do or don't like about each of them, that's going to help me narrow down the criteria even more, so when we go out on a second showing tour, those homes are even more closely fitting what you're looking for. But I also just want to make one other point, and that's going to be really understanding the market trends and also just the comp analysis. So one of the strengths that I have is I'm really good with data and understanding how to do different types of reports, and one of those being a CMA, or a comparative market analysis. And this is typically done for my seller clients to really help figure out where the range of pricing should be recommended to the seller to price their home at. But from a buyer's perspective, something that's a little bit less common, but I think is very valuable, is once we do start to identify serious possibilities for homes that we might put an offer on, at that point, we can start doing more in-depth reports and really understand what similar homes have sold for nearby, and give us a better idea of what a truly fair or reasonable offer should be, to not only put that in the offer, but also to give some reasoning behind why we're proposing a certain dollar amount for the proposal, for the contract, for the offer. So it's good just to have a little bit more of this analytical mindset when we get to this part of the process, to really have that extra level of confidence, knowing that we're not, putting an offer together that's over what it should be, and also just knowing whether or not, we're likely to get the offer accepted because of some of this additional info we can share with the listing agent to justify and reason why we're putting in the offer the way we have. All right, so there you have it. Hope you guys got a little bit of value out of this video. I know I went through everything fairly quickly, but as it's already over 20 minutes long here on the video, I want to just end it there. Just wanted to one last time express to you how excited I am to hopefully work with you here in the very near future, and how this is definitely one of the most fun parts of the home buying process, but it also can be a little bit overwhelming and frustrating at times. And the way that we can minimize that is through a very good, fluid line of communication between both the buyers as well as myself, just to ensure that every home we go out and look at is an actual legitimate home that matches a lot of these needs and wants. And we're looking at homes that are really, the right possibilities for you to consider. I'm really looking forward to sharing with you guys the next video, as well as hopefully connecting with you in person really soon to go out and look at homes together. If you have any questions at all, again, don't forget my phone number, my email, all that info is down below, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks.